It is a really sad time to be a soap fan because between a lot of stuff, you have a lot of different opinions. You have the aftermath of the EastEnders 40th anniversary, the big, bold, fantastic, look at this really cool thing, and you also have Coronation Street having one of the worst falls in soap history. And in what I am now dubbing the Great Soap Winter, Neighbours is another casualty, as Neighbours has been axed just shy of 2 years after being revived. And it's going to be an interesting one because my history of Neighbours is quite slim. I was a fan of Neighbours for about 6 months in 2020 after a person I was talking to told me they liked Neighbours, and I went, oh, I'll watch some Neighbours. And I watched a good, like some of the past stuff. I watched Chloe and Ellie. I watched Chloe and Nicolette. And I, just as you do, when you try and get into a soap, you try and watch what's out there. But the main issue with Neighbours is it's not very accessible. And it definitely wasn't until they put Neighbours on Freevee. And I think the main simple fact of the matter is, as much as you can say this is a big thing, I think this is a untrustworthy, I think Amazon were a bad faith actor in a sense. Yes, they did revive Neighbours, but still, they just kind of let it go by itself. They didn't really have much marketing for it. They didn't really use much sway. They simply just said, hey guys, we have Neighbours on Freevee, you should watch it. And, a good chunk of people did. But still, it was never really going to be the Neighbours people exactly remembered, because a lot of the cast were done with Neighbours after it died the first time. Simply saying. And imagine, it's like, oh, bloody Neighbours, it's ending, guys, and everybody left. A lot of people left. They moved away from wherever it was filmed. They all left. They went, you know what, see ya. That was fun, but there's no point staying here because this is pretty much the only acting job in town, unless you want to go over to Home and Away. You know what I mean? And so a lot of people did move away after Neighbours was axed, and then 4 months on, from it was axed, Amazon went, "Hey, Neighbours is back, boys! We're gonna revive Neighbours, woo!" And they did kill off a couple of characters in the end, and they did make life-altering stories, and then they did that time jump, and it came back in September 2023, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, what's gonna happen? And I heard about it the first week it returned, and then from there on out, it was basically radio silence. Now, I'd like to think I'm quite privy and I'm quite in the know about soaps, and I obviously know somewhat of what was happening in Neighbours, but a lot of what I saw was just kind of everybody was really happy to have it back. But like I said, I don't really know if it quite stuck the landing. And even then, so I think that this is more so an issue with Amazon, not necessarily an issue with Neighbours. Well, no, it is. It is an issue with Neighbours. But also, it seems like Amazon's been having a bit of reshuffling lately, and, the James Bond license has been reverted back, and it's basically been mismanaged as far as everyone we can tell. And yeah, it's just it's an impossible situation. I'll say that much. But I think that, and it's not like they really changed the dial necessarily. The biggest issue with Neighbours is the viewership base is so small. If it was a popular soap in Australia, you'd be fine, because then, you can get funding, you can get sponsors, you can get someone to fund the costs, and if it actually has any form of cultural impact or sway in Australia, you're safe. But the main issue with Neighbours, it's not even the most popular soap in Australia. That's Home and Away. It's always, it's consistently been Home and Away for a long time. So therefore, you're relying on fandom from being like, your fan base is basically imported. Your fan base are people in the UK, people across the world. And it's just kind of it's just a really hard one to quantify, honestly. Like, what do you do if most of your like, you know, if it, obviously, it's never going to be popular in America, but like, you know, if something's popular in America, American people pay a lot of money sponsor-wise, get a good viewership. If you get ads in America, the ads are much stronger than anywhere else in the world. It's the strongest demographic of advertising. And the issue is you're kind of in between two markets where you are set in Australia and you're also set in, like, you have to, it's just an impossible situation. And even then, so I think another problem of Neighbours in this way is, like we said, who's buying it? You're not. And initially we thought, or at least I thought, okay, it's on Freevee, it's going to get advertising money, you know? Because Freevee was conceived that and also Freevee has been dropped by Amazon as well. Freevee was essentially a TV channel where they had ads. And you could go through a lot of back catalog, but also you could watch it all for free in order to, you could watch it all for free, but there would be ads ran through the episode, which you would watch, which I imagined would actually be quite a steady little earner because, you know, soaps typically have really big advertising. Like Coronation Street has hour-long episode, 15 minutes of ads. It's only EastEnders that doesn't do ads relentlessly. So you went, okay, that's probably fine. You know, this will do. But as we said before, then when we started to look at who was going to come back, a lot of the more popular faces either did or they only did for a short period of time. Like, I don't know, in terms of soap characters I view as very popular, you obviously have like the classic main characters. You have Toadie, you have Paul Robinson, you have Rebecca, you have Therese, you have Susan and Carl. Am I missing anyone important? I guess you had Harold for a time period. Am I missing anyone? And then you have some of the younger cast that, you know, were quite popular with fans. You have Chloe. You have, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I have no real metric. And a lot of these main characters didn't come back. So now you're like, yeah, sure, the main character, like the older class, the legacy characters did. Like Carl, Susan, Toadie, Paul, Therese. I guess Therese is kind of a newer one, but, you know, at least Paul is just guaranteed. And you have all these characters that are a pretty big deal, but the rest of them didn't really come back. So now you're kind of working on the skeleton crew, right? You're working on the skeleton crew. And also, fundamentally, you also brought back, I believe there's Jason Herbison, who he was the executive producer for Neighbours. But he was the executive producer, I believe, for Neighbours when it died. You know what I mean? Like, he was the producer as it died. But I mean, now I suppose let's just clarify it though. I know I've spent a lot of time doing this. Neighbours is ending out the year. Neighbours will finish 2025. It will be resting, as it said. So I guess I'll read more of the article first, and then we can probably get to grips with a bit more as to why and just how it has been axed. Alright, so Neighbours axe officially confirmed after 40 years of drama. Neighbours has been axed again after less than 2 years back on our screens. The long-running soap has failed to secure a long-term renewal deal from Amazon, which has been streaming new episodes since September 2023. In a statement released on Friday, 21st, Neighbours confirmed, "We are sad to announce that Neighbours will be resting from December 2025. New episodes from the 40th anniversary season will continue to air on Prime Video and 10 4 times a week until the end of the year, with all the big soapy twists and turns that our viewers love." Executive producer Jason Herbison added, Audiences all around the world has loved and embraced Neighbours for 4 decades, and we are very proud of the huge success over the last 2 years, including often appearing as one of the top 10 titles in the UK, and the show's first ever daytime Emmy nomination for Outstanding Daytime Series in 2024. As this chapter closes, we appreciate and thank Amazon MGM Studios for all that they have done for Neighbours, bringing this iconic and much-loved series to new audiences globally. We value how much the fans love Neighbours, and we believe there are more stories for the residents of Ramsay Street to tell in the future. The sad news comes just weeks before Neighbours celebrates its milestone 40th anniversary with a dramatic week of episodes. Leo Tanaka and Krista Sinclair's wedding day will take centre stage across this week, alongside the returns of unfamiliar faces and deadly danger for other residents of Ramsay Street. An Amazon spokesperson said, Neighbours told Digital Spy, Neighbours has brought so much joy over the last 40 years to its fan base globally and in the UK. 40 years is an incredible milestone. We're proud that Amazon MGM Studios were able to have a small part in bringing further episodes to Freevee and Prime Video customers over 2 years, spanning over 400 episodes. Amazon stepped in to save Neighbours in November 2022, just 4 months after the final ever episode on Channel 5. The iconic show went back into production in April 2023 and was back on screen by September that year. The show was commissioned for an initial run of 2 years to boost Amazon's free streaming platform Freevee. Last year, the strategy shifted as the Freevee brand began to be phased out. The show is now streaming free on Prime Video. Devoted fans had been hopeful of the show's future, as Neighbours regularly appears in the top shows in Prime Video's daily UK viewing chart, but this wasn't enough to save it. Rebecca El Magalou, probably butchered that, who plays Therese Willis, spoke out about Neighbours' uncertain future this week during the 40th anniversary tour, calling on fans to keep celebrating the show as it needed support. The news reflects ongoing difficulties facing soaps which have high annual production costs due to the sheer volume of episodes. In the past year, BBC One's daytime soap Doctors has disappeared from our screens, Hollyoaks has been cut to 3 episodes per week, and ITV has announced plans to cut back on the number of Coronation Street Emmerdale weekly episodes from next year. So there we are. I mean, it's more of the same, right? At the end of the day, Neighbours, what were a lot of the issues over Neighbours and their production in general? Well, Neighbours had ridiculously high filming costs. They would film in ridiculously high quality cameras. And all in all, they had a lot of people on retainer, which, you know, they'd be getting a proper, they weren't necessarily locked out of doing other stuff, but they were pretty locked up to do Neighbours. And, you know, you could get me wrong, but I'm pretty sure the cost of living in Australia is also not great either. So you're also having to pay these actors a fairly hefty chunk of money. And fundamentally, it's just not that big of a deal anymore. Like, when Neighbours was, I'm pretty sure Neighbours was on Sky for a good chunk of time. Where was, like, I'm pretty sure Neighbours was quite accessible for a good chunk of time, so it did do fairly well in actually being able to, like, be seen by the outside world, right? It usually had a pretty good time showing Neighbours. But as it went on to lesser and lesser channels, suddenly the costs were still high and you just couldn't really afford to keep paying it. And I have still dubbed this the Great Soap Winter, where the money's drying up. You know, what's to say that we need shows that cost an absolute arm and a leg because you're releasing, what, like 210 episodes a year? Roughly, if you're doing 4 episodes a week. Coronation Street lowering its time, Emmerdale lowering its time, Hollyoaks reducing its weekly output. EastEnders is the only one that hasn't really changed, but even they've somewhat changed their release structure, realizing that streaming is significantly more viable than putting it on TV. Obviously, it's not been taken off yet, but fundamentally, the money's drying up for soaps. And it's not really a thing to get worried because Neighbours has been axed before. And, you know, when you revive something, typically it has a very short threshold. When you revive something, it has that immediate, like, resuscitation period where it's like, oh, it's back. Love Neighbours. Yeah. Woo. Love Neighbours. And then, you know, once a week goes, do you watch it again? Once a month passes, do you fall out of love with it? And then now just below 2 years on, what was Neighbours doing that really, like, was changing the record? You never hear about big, ridiculous stories in Neighbours are having. It's kind of that perennial underdog that's kind of chasing its tail, but never really gets there. Like, there's a reason why the most popular people from Neighbours are bloody Kylie Minogue and Jason someone. I don't even remember. But point being, Jason Donovan? Yeah, there we are, roughly. But the point being is that you can't go back to, like, I get that it's a daytime soap, and daytime soaps don't really have as much crossover as, like, the nighttime soaps, because usually it's a bit more bold. You can do much darker stories. You can do much, like, bigger, bolder, exciting stuff. But, like I said, if the funding's dying out, the daytime soaps are getting gutted first. You know what I mean? Like, Doctors is gone. I just remember Doctors, really. I'm pretty sure Holby City gone? Isn't it just Casualty? No, Holby City is gone. Yeah. But yeah, it's just it is sad. But at the end of the day, Amazon were mostly picking it up in hope that they could launch Freevee. But even then Freevee failed. Freevee clearly did not know what they want. Well, they knew what they wanted to do, but it didn't necessarily function the way you would expect. So we do now need to first say, you know, condolences to all the actors involved. They have been ham-fisted again. They have been... Yeah, it's over. It's over. They have sorry, bloody hell, getting distracted. You know, all the actors going, guys, come back. Neighbours is staying for good this time. We swear. We swear. Oh no, never mind. See ya. Like, I don't know how to make soaps profitable again. And I think another issue with Neighbours is so hard to find. Like, yeah, sure, now they put a lot of it on Amazon, so you could actually go back and watch old Neighbours. But, like, you know how sometimes you get into soap storylines by you go ahead and watch a bunch of episodes put online, or a bunch of different storylines. But, like, the Neighbours channel has 93k subscribers, and they release a couple videos a week, and it gets like 2,000. They have been releasing episodes of Neighbours like live. Yeah, true. That's actually a smart thing. They have been releasing a bunch of the old series of Neighbours. They've been releasing 2011. So you can somewhat credit them. I think a slight issue, they're not really clickbaiting at all. Like, I know it's rich coming from me, but, like, fundamentally, you kind of you have to play the game. You do have to play the game. Yeah, it is a shame, and as we said, a lot of the actors and the directors and everybody kind of moved back in a way to... They all moved back to It's like, all right, Neighbours, it's happened again. We're back. We're back. Neighbours back, boys. Oh, and it's gone again. It is tragic. It is a shame. But at the end of the day, it was only so impactful. And I like Neighbours. I enjoyed Neighbours as a cultural milestone, but it's not been impactful in years. And that's just the sheer factor of the matter is. And at the end of the day, Amazon, were they really going to be the pariah of Neighbours in the near future? Not really. And just generally, revivals of soaps, they never really function. Like, does everybody remember the Crossroads reboot? Like, no, it just doesn't work. It's just, you have to be there. It has to work at the time. Everybody loves something in the wake of it, but in the aftermath, are you actually following through? The answer's typically no. But, I mean, not many things get to be revived, so everybody got to do a lot more, got to get, nearly 400 episodes over the last 2 years, which is more than you were having previously. So at the end of the day, it is sad, but Neighbours just simply wasn't popular enough